Today's video, I figured I'd give you guys a full top to bottom checklist on my factory, Stark Varg. Now, for those that don't know, I do have a contract with Stark Feature. They are the manufacturer of these increasingly popular electric dirt bikes that have became kind of like the hot commodity in the free ride and honestly in just the whole motocross world in general over the last, I'd say 2 years, but really in 2025, these things have been popping off, and you see them at every track you go to, you see them in the streets doing wheelies, you see them out in the hills, you see these things everywhere. So I am lucky enough to have a contract with Stark Feature, and I figured it'd be kind of cool to give you guys a top to bottom like checklist of what is actually going on with this factory, Stark Varg. So we're gonna start from top to bottom, like I mentioned. And yes, I do have about 60-ish hours on this bike. So it's not brand new, obviously you guys can tell. Start with the handlebars. I run the Pro Taper SX Race Bend. I run them unlocked. These bars are cool because they have the option to run them either unlocked, or you can turn this knob here, lock them out, and the flex becomes a lot less, I should say. I like to have a lot of flex, which kind of plays into why I run the SX Race Cut grips right here, because they're super soft for the hard landings and like the big jumps. And honestly, just personal preference, I really like a soft grip. So I choose to run grip donuts as well, just because who likes blisters, right? But I really like the soft grips. Gives me a little bit more plushness when I land, especially with these bars unlocked. I get a little bit more flex. This kind of makes the hard landings a little bit easier. So I got the Pro Taper bars. I don't run the bar pad cover just because I choose not to. My girlfriend Summer, behind the camera, has actually written me my own little like saying on my bar pad. So every time I go out and ride, I have this little tape that says "Become Undeniable." It's kind of been my saying over the last couple of years. So she went ahead and wrote that on my bar pad, just so when I go out and ride, I don't forget to give it my all, because you want to become undeniable. Now we'll go down to the handlebar mounts right here. These are just KTM stock upper bar mounts. Usually the Varg comes stock with like the phone mount right here. I choose to take that off. I have all my settings preset. And for those that are wondering, I do run 55 horsepower, 0% regen on this. That's right about the sweet spot. I know myself and a couple of the other Stark Varg riders run basically the same settings, because it's kind of like the standard, and it feels the most like a 450 in like second to third gear. So that's the settings I do run. But obviously the Stark Varg comes stock with the phone mount right here. So I took that off, I disassembled it, and you can see I have it zip tied. I should take this front plate off to show you guys, but I have it zip tied to the front of the triple clamps right here. That all that phone mount is just a Bluetooth like wireless charger, kind of like combined with the phone holder. I don't know if I'm explaining that exactly correctly, but all it is a Bluetooth charger. So in order to charge the bike, I believe that has to be connected to the bike. So I have it connected, but I disassembled the actual holder itself and zip tied it to the front of the triple clamps, just to kind of get it out of the way and be able to run my own crossbar, because I prefer this look. And if I come down from a hard landing or something, I have more cushion. The phone holder doesn't have as much cushion as this does. So it's kind of a safety thing, kind of not. But it does add a little bit more like safety to it in my mind, just having my actual crossbar here. I had some Cerakote work done on this reservoir right here, and I have the Works Connection cap, as well as a carbon fiber protector right here. I kind of run it for looks. I'm not really eating roost or anything, so nothing's really gonna damage that. I just think it looks cool. I run the arc levers, like unbreakable, foldable, whatever these things are called. This one's pretty beat up. It has gone through, I think this is the second Varg I've had this lever on. So this thing is pretty beat up, but I still run it because I only have one. Now, another very controversial part of this bike is my quote unquote fake clutch. All it is like a clutch perch with the lever connected, obviously, and then some bicycle inner tube cut up, wrapped around here. My dad actually came up with this. Shout out to him for kind of inventing this for me. But it's just some bicycle inner tube cut up, works as like a resistance band, and it kind of feels like a hydraulic clutch when you pull it in and out. I just have it there for muscle memory and to kind of keep my form on point. I don't really like the death grip thing, and I really do not prefer to run the handbrake unless I'm doing like wheelies or something. I like to have the foot brake. I like to keep this like as natural and traditional as I possibly can. So I have this on here just for muscle memory. And if you guys notice, like I'll be coming back from a whip or I'll be landing or something and my finger will come from here and go to here just out of muscle memory. So that's really all that's there for. It's not Bluetooth, it's not connected to anything. I know a lot of people have been saying I have this like a Bluetooth clutch or whatever, but it's basically just kind of a gimmick just to keep me comfortable. I also have solid KTM mounts in here because these stock rubber ones wear out pretty quickly, especially with how hard I pull for whips, and just overall in general in riding, they like to kind of twist and bend and get out of place a little bit. So we put the solid mounts in just to keep it more consistent, so I don't land hard or something and I'm trying to hit my bars back into place. So we put the solid mounts in there. Those are just KTM as well. This bike is basically half KTM, half Stark. So you can put a lot of KTM parts on these things. Now, a big part of this bike for me is the suspension. This suspension is set up and done by TCD Racing. It's KYB. And I have the Kashima coated upper forks with the DLC lowers. I also have KYB billet lugs. These were actually used. I got these from TCD themselves. They had a set on hand, lightly used, so we threw those on here. This does not come like this. This comes silver. I had this coated black with the Brembo logo kind of taped off, so it looks cool. This suspension itself is set up extremely stiff. And once we get to the shock, I'll kind of talk that over and show you guys more about that. But the suspension is set up super stiff, probably stiffer than every Supercross rider. I don't know, maybe Tomac might have a stiffer setup, but it's super stiff and super dead. And what I mean by that is it doesn't rebound at all. It doesn't soak up bumps. It is meant for one compression up a ramp and one compression when I land, and that's it. The slower the rebound is, I feel is more consistent for me off of the ramp and off the big jumps. It allows for me to feel basically the compression of it and to kind of slow it down. So right at the top of the lip, the thing wants to unload and I get as much pop, as much height, and it feels as consistent as possible for me. So I also run this Works Connection hole shot device. I've never used this in the entire span that I've had this bike. It is only on here for looks because I literally don't think these forks could compress down to get it hooked enough in the first place. And second, I don't race anymore, so there's no point. Well, Works Connection helps me out a little bit, so I threw that on there just for looks because I think it looks really cool. And it's kind of like a nod to like my old racer days, I guess. But I just think it looks cool and it kind of adds to a little bit of the flair of the bike, so that's why I run that. Now, I don't run graphics at all, but I have a good connection with 139 Designs. He helps me out with the number plates when I need them. I've been running this 999 design on the back of my jersey for a really long time. I honestly decided why not just run it on the front plate and see if it looks good. So that's why I have this design. I think it's pretty cool. Nothing special about it, nothing whatever. It's kind of like a little infinity design. I don't know, I just think it looks cool, so I threw that on the front plate. Next, I have this all white seat cover. It's the grippiest seat cover I could find. It has the ribs on the side, or like the long rib right here. It's got the ribs down the middle. The grippier the seat cover for me, the better, because when I'm sitting down on a ramp or a jump or whatever, I'm pulling super hard. I don't want to slip. So I have this seat cover on here. I have this installed over the stock seat and the seat cover itself. One, to kind of help like when you wash the bike, to kind of keep it from deteriorating from the water, like seeping into the foam. And two, it adds a little bit of extra firmness. It kind of just helps keep the seat nice and firm and fresh, because I like a super stiff seat. Now for one of my absolute like favorite parts of this bike, and probably the trickiest and what I would consider like factory part on this bike, is this CNC machined shifter right here. Now, this was done by Wild Manufacturing / Great Lakes Supermoto. I came to him earlier in like January, February, trying to find somebody that would be willing to kind of manufacture and actually CNC machine a shift hook for me. Because for my riding style, I really rely on hooking my foot underneath something, whether it's on a 450 and I'm grabbing a gear right after I leave the jump, or on the Stark, you have to almost have something there for specific whips and specific tricks and whatever you're trying to do, just to keep your knees tight to the bike. So I came to Will at Wild Manufacturing and said, look, let's try to come up with a design that's 1, looks sick, 2, functions really well, and 3, is extremely durable, because you do not want to have one of these break. I've been there, I've done that. I've done the Superman straight to my stomach, not trying to do that again. So we came up with this design. It's basically a cover in itself on the inverter, and it doubles as like the little case saver right here, because we have the little slits for like dirt and mud to, you know, kind of escape if you get it packed in there. It's also got a lock nut on the back, so this actual peg slash like shifter can't come undone, and it's fully adjustable. So there's 3 different textures you can get on this. This is the most mild texture because I'm trying not to tear my boots up too much, but this is the most mild texture. It comes in 3 different textures, and it's fully adjustable. This measurement right here is almost identical to having a YZ450 shifter held all the way up. It's almost identical. So like I said earlier in the video, I try to keep this bike as traditional as possible to a 450, so when I go back and forth, it feels pretty natural. That's why I went with that, and worked with Will over at Wild Manufacturing to make sure that this felt as, you know, natural as possible. And I think we absolutely nailed it. You can get it in multiple different colors, but I kind of like the raw slash like machine look with it. I just think it pops, and it's probably my favorite part on this bike. Now next is an actual factory part, straight from the Stark factory themselves, and that is these tie foot pegs. Now these things are pretty beat up, they're pretty old. I got them when I got my very first Stark Varg. These are 3D printed titanium, straight from the manufacturer themselves. I honestly should probably get another set because these are getting pretty dull, but when they're fresh and brand new, they are super sharp, super nice. And even though the Varg comes with super sick pegs right out of the box, I tend to run these just because I think they're a little bit sharper, a little bit better. Any advantage I can get, I'm gonna take. But this is indeed a factory part. But sharp pegs do help a lot, which is why I decided to run these over the stock pegs. Now, I'm sure you've noticed on this bike, I have a ton of grip tape. As you can see, it's pretty worn out right now. I need to throw a fresh set on. But I run grip tape all over this bike, and that's because it's super, super thin, which isn't a negative. I know it kind of sounds like I'm turning it towards a negative, which I'm not. I absolutely love how thin this bike is. But when you're throwing big whips, you really need to have like some sort of grip to keep your knees and legs connected to the bike so you don't like Superman off of the bike. So I run a ton of grip tape. All it is just like step tape from Home Depot. I don't have like a grip tape sponsor or anything. I don't really feel like that's super necessary. I just go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy like 25-foot roll of grip tape and kind of cut it myself. You can tell I'm not a professional. I don't really have a template, but I just kind of cut it myself, throw it on there. And then I have some on the side panel right here, which all this is clear skateboard grip tape that I buy off Amazon. I buy in large rolls as well. So I have skateboard grip tape on the panels here, and then like step tape on the frame. Brand new within the last 2-3 weeks, I've started running Stegpegs. Now I know this looks pretty funky. A lot of Woods riders and stuff run them. I know Levi Kitchen runs them on the outdoor circuit, but I absolutely love these things. I'll throw up a clip right here as to what they do. But mainly, again, for like the big whips and stuff, when I'm fully inverted and I'm getting that thing, I'm basically tossing that thing out, like kicking my legs out. What these do is they act as like a stop. It stops my leg from going any farther back and slipping off of the bike. Even with the amount of grip tape that I have, it basically acts as a stop to kind of hold my legs on the bike. And honestly, they probably benefit me more than the grip tape itself. I could probably get rid of all the grip tape and just run these if I had to. Now combine the Stegpegs with the shift hook and the grip tape, and I'm not flying off this thing, at least not on accident. Also, the Stegpegs do come with like a mount that goes on the outside of the plastics. I fully just got rid of it, and all I did was bolt them straight through the plastics and kind of torque them down as tight as I could just to keep them from moving. And I honestly haven't had any issues with these things like pulling out or moving or anything. And this is the first set of plastics that I've used with this, and I've been running them for a couple weeks now. They do come with the external mount. I don't feel like that's totally necessary, but the option's there if you need it. Otherwise, you can just take the pegs, bolt them straight to the plastics, and you're good to go. So I feel like Stegpegs are probably the most overlooked accessory in moto. I haven't ridden with these on a moto track just yet, but I can see the total benefit of like in rollers or when you're leaning back off the start or whatever it is, to keep your feet like tight to the bike and keep you kind of in the correct position. These can definitely help a ton. So huge shout out to Stegpegs. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, my suspension is super stiff. And probably the stiffest part of this bike is this shock. I probably went through 8 or 9 settings in this shock trying to get it stiff enough. And I still struggle a little bit here and there, but that's mainly due to the weight of this bike. I believe this bike weighs around like 267, 270, probably around 20-ish pounds more than a 450. I know there's people out there that think this thing weighs like 150 pounds. This thing weighs around 267, 270. And as you can see underneath the fender, I'm leaving some of my Bridgestone tire under there because of the weight of this bike. Combine the torque with the weight of the rider, which I'm 6-ish, 6'1", 200 pounds. I'm sitting down into a next gen ramp, cracking this thing wide open. It's gonna be extremely hard for me to get this suspension stiff enough, but TCD Racing has done a really good job for the circumstances. And I know Stark's working on getting these things lighter and lighter every single year, as they just came out with the Varg 1.2, which is, I believe, 2 pounds or so lighter than this bike right here, as this is just the Stark Varg 1.0 or the Gen 2 1.0, whatever you want to call it. So I know they're working very hard to get it to that point without sacrificing the range of the battery. Now I also have a carbon fiber mud guard under here. I used to have one that was spray painted white, but obviously that didn't last very long, so I found this carbon fiber one. Looks super sick and saves a tiny little bit of weight. So now, while we're on the topic of carbon parts, I just took this thing off to clean and get underneath the battery a little bit, and I totally forgot to put this one on. I don't know why I put the stock one on, but I have this P3 carbon skid plate right here. This thing is absolutely badass. Cannot get enough of this thing. It's white. It comes in different colors. They have a black one, yellow, red, blue, whatever. This is the white one, and I have a black one in the garage to go on my track bike, but I usually run this thing on this bike. I'm gonna have to switch this over real quick and show you guys what it looks like. This thing is super badass. I don't really believe it saves too much weight, but it looks cool, and looking good is half the battle. Next, I have a powder coated swing arm done by Eric over at ESP Coatings as well. Swing arm probably has like 80-ish hours on it. However many hours are on this bike, that's how many hours are on the swing arm and the coating. And it still looks pretty fresh. I know I didn't do the best clean job, but it still looks pretty fresh. It's holding up really well. And I think the black swing arm versus like the stock gray one changes the look of the bike entirely. Also, these are OEM chain and sprockets that come directly from Stark. I've changed them once in the entire time that I've owned this bike. And fun fact, I've never adjusted the chain ever. Due to the fact that there is no actual like clutch and you're not stretching the chain. You'd think because of the torque, it'd stretch the chain out and you'd be going through chain and sprockets like crazy. But I've never even adjusted the chain on this thing. I know they have the cool chain adjusters on here, but I've never ever had to actually like touch it. And they last super long as well. I kind of change them as like a precautionary measure, just because I kind of like to have a fresh chain and sprockets. But I've never actually adjusted the chain at all. I don't really even look at it anymore, which is a pretty bad habit because on the 450, you got to adjust that thing like every other moto basically. You're never gonna find something as low maintenance as a Varg anywhere else. And last but not least, we have Bridgestone tires. I absolutely love these things. I'm running the Battlecross X31 on the rear and the Battlecross X40 on the front. And the wheels themselves are still bone stock. Honestly, knock on wood, but these things have been holding up extremely well under the circumstances. But I choose to run the stock wheels because I trust them that much. Now, as far as like tire choice goes, I usually run the X31 on the front and the rear, but I decided to try out the X40 on the front, which is more of like a hard pack tire, to see if I can get a little bit more life out of them on the ramp, because the ramps do tend to kind of destroy tires. They're pretty, obviously you're riding it up a metal grate, so that's pretty common to chew up your tires. But on my track bike, I've had Bridgestones on them all season long, and even though I don't ride tracks too much, they're still like basically brand new. They're definitely outlasting my Dunlops by a huge margin, so I'm very happy with the Bridgestone. I also run heavy duty tubes. I was playing around a little bit earlier this year with like wheel weight and trying to see if I could get maybe a moose or like a heavier duty tube inside of the tire to kind of help with like the rotation and the wheel spin speed a little bit, and kind of just see what the results were. And the results were enough to convince me to run the heavy duty tubes. But I have played around a little bit with like weight and trying to get every single edge that I can out of this bike, because why not? So that's everything that kind of goes into my factory Stark Varg. I know it's not like super crazy, or there's no like fancy factory whatever in this bike, but for me being a contracted Stark athlete, I figured I might as well throw the factory clickbait in there, because technically it is factory. But this is the identical bike that you'd go to your, you know, local dealership and buy. So in that sense, it's just the stock Stark Varg with some pretty sick trick parts on it. And I figured it'd make a good video, kind of explain to you guys, like, it's just kind of an explanation and something cool to kind of put out there and give you guys a little bit more info and insight into these Stark Varg. So that's it. If you guys have questions or you have a little bit more in-depth questions about this bike, drop your comments down below. I'd be happy to, you know, respond to every single comment that I see. But that's about it for this video. If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And we will see you guys in the next video.